Hello, ABG is back. We are back with another episode of Top 5 Games that aspiring designers should play. So before we head on to what we're going to discuss, just a PSA. Yeah, if your country is still fighting COVID, Singapore is still fighting COVID, that's why we are still in this extended circuit breaker period. So if you are still affected by COVID, I implore you, stay home, stay safe, wash your hands, keep yourself safe, and once COVID is over, we can all go out and have fun and play our board games. Okay, so for now, keep in check what you plan to do, all your external activities. Just stay home and just bear out the period. Once the tough times has gone, we will all get better. Okay, anyway, that is the PSA. So to happier things, today with me, I have 4 individuals. As you can see them already smiling at you awkwardly through our own individual video screens. So I have Colin, Geoffrey. Geoffrey is not new to the series. You have seen him in episode 1. I have Isaac, and I also have Jonas, whom I have an interview with. You can actually check out the video link somewhere here. Okay, so I will let them introduce themselves, and very shortly we will go into the top 5 games that they think aspiring designers should play. So Colin, why don't we start with yourself?
Yep. Hi everyone. My name is Colin, and I'm the founder of Settlers Cafe. That is the first board games cafe in Singapore. So right now I do board game design classes, workshops, run one of the board game hangouts itself called Basecamp, and still design games locally for police force and a few other people.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Geoffrey, how about you? Just for those who haven't seen you on episode 1.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here again. I'm an aspiring board game designer, hoping to start my very first Kickstarter board game after the COVID period. Yeah, so for me, I've actually developed a few prototypes. Yeah, so probably I will select which one will be my first Kickstarter project. And of course, for this top 5 list, I'm picking games that actually give me some inspiration to come up with a number of creative ideas. Yeah, so basically it's the list of games that actually inspire me to be a lot more creative, and also encourage me to use some sort of methods when it comes to board game design. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Geoffrey. So next we have Isaac.
Hello, I'm Isaac, board game designer. I have only one published game, also a couple of expansions for that same game. How I came up with my list was mainly through seeing the kind of prototypes I see the most from aspiring designers, both in person and also online, and thinking of like what are the best examples of these types of games that they are showing for them to play and understand like what's like the gold standard of what's being played out there, so that these designers can really get a good point of reference for what they're doing.
Yeah. Anyway, Isaac's game has been mentioned in our series 1. Isaac, why don't you tell us what your game is, since they will probably have heard of it in our first series.
Yeah, I believe it was mentioned by Steve. It's the Purbal's Adventure card game. It's basically a fantasy theme card game based around cats. That's why Cat Venture. So it's a very light card game where you just choose characters, collect cards. It's mainly a set collection game, and at the end you just count score and see who wins. It's pretty simple.
Thank you, Isaac. And last but not least, we have Jonas.
Hello, I'm Jonas. I'm a board game designer, and I just fully funded my first card game called Saucy Grannies on Kickstarter. Yeah. Right now I'm working on another few games, and hopefully after the circuit breaker I'll be able to talk to some publishers and see what we can do with them. Yeah. I am also the guy behind Tabletop Tavern for Instagram, and also tabletoptavern.blog. So if you're interested, you can go and take a look.
Yep, thank you, Jonas. So why don't we head straight into games? Colin, you want to take us? You want to start off first? Your first game that you feel that aspiring designers should play?
So for my side, basically, the games I've chosen, right, are basically what's dear to my heart. It's Euro games. So if you're aspiring to do Euro games, and it's games itself that talks more about parts, participation, multiple paths to victory, and so on. These are probably some of the games that you should look at. So, before I do, let's start. Number 5. There's this this board game called Santiago. So Santiago is basically a simple game, and this game is designed by Claudia Halley and Roman Pelek. So this game is not, say, a very new game. It's been around for some time, and it's one of those games which you would find in several of the early board game cafes. So what's so great about the game? Well, first of all, in the game itself, it teaches you the idea about tile placement, commodity speculation, as well as a very interesting topic for games which is called bribery and negotiation. So in the game itself, players are actually trying to build their plantation, and they're collecting different sets of wheat, commodities, and so on. And at the same time, trying to make sure that where they are inside, whether you're first player or you're the last player, there are some advantages in which crops to pick and to go. So for game designers, this is one where you can actually see how all these seamlessly blend together, and in which cases where you actually will be able to choose how you see the player reactions are. The easiest way for me to describe it is one of those games where players, if you like your game to have the attitude of players negotiating, quietly trying to backstab, and you see enough players trying to poke in and out, it's probably one of those games that you would want to try. It comes in a very unassuming box. It looks boring. Frankly, it looks boring. But try the gameplay out. So my number 5 is Santiago.
All right, thank you, Colin. So, Geoffrey, why don't you take us your number 5?
Sure. Okay, my number 5 is a game that actually felt like you're playing Weiqi or Go, okay, which is the title. The title is called Through the Desert by Rena Kinesia, and the publisher is Cosmos. Yeah, I believe it's Cosmos. Yeah, there is an earlier version, but I think the recent version should be by Cosmos. Yeah. Okay, so why does this game inspire me so much, right? It's because, okay, when I first played the game, right, it actually felt a lot like Weiqi. And it is actually kind of like an evolution of Weiqi. Why do I say that? It's because, okay, it felt like the designer was thinking, okay, what can I make? How can I make Weiqi better? Or how can I develop a game, all right, based on Weiqi? It felt like that. I'm not very sure of the truth, but it actually felt like that when I played the game. So the gameplay, right, is about players controlling a bunch of camels. It's an abstract strategy game whereby each turn you place 1 or 2 camels, and you try to form a chain where you can enclose certain areas. And once you enclose the area, right, you earn points based on how you enclose the area with your camels in different colors. Okay, you can also earn points by landing on various spots. And one of the best thing about this game is the camel tokens, the meeples. Okay, actually look like candy. Yeah, they look very delicious. So packaging wise, the art wise, okay, I felt like it is a very it is a game that is worth the buy. Yeah, and I actually enjoy the game a lot. It kind of inspired me to, design games. All right, I'm not encouraging developing clones of other games. What I'm encouraging is, okay, you can borrow certain game elements, okay, certain part of gameplay, and then maybe you can think of, let's say, how are you going to make some sort similar but a different, unique game, that stands out on its own. Yeah, so that's my number 5, Through the Desert.
All right, Isaac. What is number 5?
My number 5 is so one of the most common games I see new devs come up with is dudes on the map kind of games. Basically light war games where you have a lot of soldiers, you fight for territory, you roll some dice. And to me, the best and the most elegant example of dudes on the map war game you can get out there that is also pretty casual mass market is Small World. Right. So Small World is a really good game because it simplifies everything down. Right. There's no like complicated, like special things that everyone can do every turn. It simply comes down to what's your race and what's your race's special ability. And even better, I find, is the system where every turn all you do is just either take one action or the other. Okay, because I find most games the complication tends to be like they give you like 10 actions you can do a turn. and that always leaves new players like lost. Like, which one do I do? Which is better? You know, what, like, should I attack, defend, support? So yeah, to me, Small World is one of the best in terms of the map war games out there, and definitely every new designer trying to design a game like that should try it.
Okay, thank you, Isaac. So Jonas, take us to your number 5 game.
Yeah. So when Geoffrey was talking about Through the Desert by Rainer Knizia, I'll just talk about my first one lah. It's Tigris and Euphrates by him also. Yeah, I felt like when I play his games usually let me feel like there's like infinite replayability. He uses classic board game, not even board games, classic games like chess and Go as his inspiration, and this makes his games feel very strategic and tactical at the same time. Yep. So for Tigris and Euphrates, I'm not sure if you all have played before, but the scoring mechanism is very interesting. Basically, you're trying to collect cubes, right? 4 different colored cubes, and you can collect as many as you want. But at the end of the game, the one that scores, right, is only the color of cube that you have least, which makes the strategy in this game kind of funky, and it will always be different every single time you play it. Yeah. So on top of that, you have blind bidding when you do your fights. So the game is very much pushed by the players. It really depends on how the players play, and they can really blindside each other quite a lot. So this is one of the games that I felt like it was a source of inspiration when I was working on my first few games. Yeah.
Good choice, yeah. I really like Kinesia for one thing. Most of his games, the actions are really simple, and the depth comes in what you do in the action, not like, choosing from 20 different actions. So yeah,
correct.
Definitely a very good choice.
Okay, so we have a common favorite designer that we all agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we head back to Colin for his number 4.
Okay. All right. So anyway, we're back to number 4. So for number 4, my game is Barren Park by Philip Walker Harding. I think that's how I pronounce this. That's how it's pronounced his name. So for Barren Park itself, it's one of those games where you're looking at Tetris-like pieces. You're trying to make something on your board and trying to overall grow your own zoo, your own zoological park, and your different animals. The difference is people are also competing against you for it. So it is one of the series that I noticed for game designers today, that people are looking for your games that doesn't have like, on your turn you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. On your turn you just take one simple action and that gives you reward. So this is simply what Barren Park is all about. So it's a tile placement, set collection, at the same time tile drafting game. Elegantly beautiful, elegantly simple. So in most games, you have players who needs a sort of guide on how they want to get victory points or objectives. And I felt that Barren Park itself gives you that, in sense that each different game you get a different objective tile you can use to follow, or you might want to start your own strategy and build your own park. But at the same time, for those who like puzzle games, it is where you can see how different pieces can flow together and make the game better. So Barren Park is my rating for number 4 because it's not the first in its own genre. You have other games, for example, Blockers. It's very simple, but it's kind of fits into a singular color, whereas this is being more colorful and you actually get people to enjoy the game because of the graphic and the art behind it. And at the same time, it is not as complex as some of the other similar games they see on the market for its genre, like Galaxy Trucker itself. So if you're looking for something for a family, you're building something for a family game, then Barren Park is one of those games that you should be looking at. So I put it as my number 4.
All right. So Geoffrey, back to you.
All right. Okay, so for my number 4, okay, it is basically a game that synthesizes 2 games. Okay, so have you played before a game that makes you feel like it is game A plus game B equals to game C? Okay, and And for this number 4 board game, right? Okay, I would like to mention a cooperative games. I generally don't really enjoy cooperative games. Generally, it's because of a group. Okay, there might be a number of Indian chiefs or so-called self-appointed leaders who will give direction and the rest follows. Okay, but for this game, this cooperative game, right, is actually an exception, and I love to share exceptions. Okay, so what game is this? Imagine Dixit plus Cluedo equals to Mysterium. All right, so my number 4 game is Mysterium. Okay, so why do I enjoy this game? Okay, it's because, okay, basically every single player has a role to contribute to finish a task. So in a way whereby, okay, it is not something, right, a leader or an Indian chief, okay, I would like to call this leader an Indian chief, okay, we're able to, able to accurately, okay, give his predictions. Yeah, because a lot of the answers, okay, whether you want to guess who's the murderer, which is the murder weapon, okay, it's really up to the ghost, and it is basically everybody's responsibility to depict what the ghost is trying to think. Yeah, okay. So to talk about the gameplay, okay, basically it's a deduction. All right. Every single round, okay, you are trying to guess in sequence the murderer, the murder location, and the murder weapon. Okay, so you'll get your answers based on clues given by the ghost. And what are the clues? They are basically 2 picture cards. And I can assure you that each card looks very good. It looks abstract, it looks weird, it looks scary at sometimes, but they actually can give you some clues that is highly related to all the murder weapons, the locations, the murderers, you can associate, it can teach you association, you can associate maybe, a black crow might be talking about the murderer's black coat, for example. A person's top hat might want to talk about, a very classy area, example. Yeah. So I find the gameplay wise, okay, it's so interesting for a cooperative game, right, which I don't mind hosting a game, and I don't mind sharing the game to many new board gamers. And for this game, it actually teaches me that, you can actually find gameplay inspirations, right? Okay, by playing more games, and maybe you can find a game A and a game B and see whether is it possible to create a very, very nice game, okay, just by adding A and B into a C. Of course, I still don't encourage creating clones. I don't encourage, copying for the sake of it, okay, but you can somewhat borrow gameplay elements, merge them, and then find some way, fine-tune the way it creates a game that actually stands out. Yeah, so Mysterium is one of the cooperative games that actually inspires me when it comes to learning some game design techniques. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it's designed by Oleg Skandernevsky and Oleg Sindorenko. Yeah, the publisher by Libelot.
Those Polish names are impossible to pronounce.
Yeah.
Can you remember?
Everyone's sake, do mind our pronunciation. We are, by right, we are native English because we are mainly English educated, but we obviously don't look like your typical English.
Yeah.
We're of Chinese descent for, I think, all of us. Yeah.
Anyway, to add on to Jeff's point, yeah, it's true. It's always about sometimes when you add A to B, your product C is so superior. It gets better. I'll just give, just a quick interject. It's one of the interesting games is Seven Wonders by Anton Bowser. So if people who play Magic the Gathering immediately goes, wait a minute, he just ripped out the draft mechanic for the game and made it a board game. So yes, it's not about shamelessly copying, but it's all about improving the game.
So we are back with Isaac.
Funny you mentioned borrow, because like my next game is basically a game which I directly borrowed the entire scoring system from. So like basically the game I'm talking about is Concordia, and Concordia is like one of the best scoring systems in any Euro game I've seen. All right, it's basically like you form a hand of cards, and these cards are both the actions you take and also tell you how you score points at the end of the game. So every time you gain a card, it doesn't just expand your possibilities, it also tells you how you're going to basically score at the end of the game, which then basically determines the strategy for the rest of the game, all right? So it's why I chose Concordia out of all the Euro games in the universe is basically, it's a very stripped down game. Not in that it's very simple, in that it's cut down to like the most simplest, the most core mechanics, right? It doesn't have any extraneous gameplay, it doesn't have any extraneous mechanics in the game, which is like something I find is a common problem in most Euro games where they have like things thrown in. Suddenly you have like a random track you have to climb. There's a whole separate board you need to do something on. In Concordia, everything is related to everything else, all right? There's nothing that's separate. So you are focusing on the board, you're collecting resources, use the resources to expand on the board, gain more resources, build more workers and stuff like that, right? So Concordia, designed by Max Gertz, is my number 4 pick.
Jonas?
Good pick. Good pick. It's like my number 7 or something. I really considered adding it in.
It's a really good one.
Okay. So talking about cooperative games, I have one that is semi-co-op because it's Fury of Dracula. So it's 1v4. So you can consider 4 players playing as a co-op and the other player being by himself, who is actually playing Dracula. So the reason why I like the game is because the problem with co-op games is that, like you said, Geoffrey said, there's usually one Indian chief, right? And that Indian chief is the player that really knows how to play the game. That's why he's trying to help the rest of the players. It's not exactly because he wants to take charge, right? In Fury of Dracula, you can have the board game owner, who is usually the one that is the most proficient at the game, playing as Dracula, and then have the new players playing the Vampire Slayers, right? So this makes it fun for everybody, including the player that has the board game. This asymmetry is something that I feel like board game designers should try to emulate in their games. That's one of the reasons why I like Fury of Dracula. The second reason is because this game it allows Dracula to cheat. It's one of the rare few games that says, okay, you can cheat, right? Because there are rules for cheating. After you are caught cheating, you have these few disadvantages. So this is something that I think is something that board game designers should consider when they are designing their games. What if there is hidden movement? Should I add in something to counter cheating? Or should I encourage cheating actually to make the game even more interesting? Yeah, so that's the second reason why this Fury of Dracula is my number 4.
One thing I really like about Fury of Dracula is it tells a story naturally as you play. Like one thing I love is the combat system where you play a card and then they can counter with a card. So like you have these amazingly funny things happen, like Dracula stares at you, and how do you counter that? You punch him in the face. And it's just comedy. It's really good.
Oh, that is really a historical game. I've not heard this name until today. You mentioned it for many years.
I think it's reprinted like 5 times. It's on the 5th edition now, I think.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Currently, there's 4.
Oh, 4th. Okay, 4th.
Yeah, on their 4th edition.
Yeah. Designers Frank Brooks, Stephen Han, and Kevin Wilson.
We are rotating back to Colin. So Colin, now your top 3.
Okay, number 3. So number 3 itself is kind of directly responsible for me to come back into games design, because I've been stuck for a long time trying to figure out how to bring one of my games, which I'm doing, it's called Keylong, to life again. It's like the mechanics I used in the past was really old. So, I can see Jonas kind of like slightly smiling because he definitely know what the game title is. So the game title is called Crusaders, That Will Be Done by Seth Geoffrey. So being a typical Singaporean, this cheapskate guy saw that, hey, wait a minute, this is a game where, for those who know me, I like the rondo game system. For those who do not know what a rondo system is, it is where on your turn, you just take one move and you have to move in a circular direction and take one action in a space that you move forward to. And it's made famous by another games designer that was mentioned earlier, Matt Getz, who did Concordia. So Concordia is a card game version of a rondel. However, for what Steph did was to take the rondel system and notch it up a little bit more. And as you mentioned about mixing game mechanics, So in Crusaders, that will be done. Players get to move not one item piece, but they get to move an entire stack of pieces after they have taken an action, which is a change in it. So my recommendation for people who are inspiring to try it out is that I'm pretty sure that most people who are doing game design for the Euro market have definitely heard of Matt Getz and who have done games like Concordia, to name one. Another one that I was really fighting hard to put into the top 5, but I felt it clashed with Crusaders, was Imperial. Likewise, it's by Matt Getz. And this completes education on what a rondel system would be or could be. The major thing that struck me is, unlike most games, you might take a move and not actually get a reward. In this game, every single move you make is basically giving you a reward in points. So every single move that you do has a reason for it, which is hard to find in a lot of games. And thinking of that, you would think it leads to a lot of game downtime. It doesn't. It actually helps you to speed up and think carefully about where your best actions are and even how you can try to block your opponents on getting the optimal area itself. So Crusaders That Will Be Done doesn't seem to actually, in our local context, have gotten much love. So I will bring it up to those of you who have not tried out. Give it a chance if you get hold of a copy. So Crusaders That Will Be Done is my number 3.
Okay, so we kind of have a team going. We have a kind of one of the favorite designer. Now we have a favorite team, at least combining two different individuals. And we're back to Geoffrey.
All right. Okay, so for number 3, right, I would like to talk about team. Yes, since Colin mentioned about team. Okay, for my number 3, right, I select this game is because of team. Okay, so I'm basically a type of designer, okay, who actually started out developing the gameplay first, then the team comes later, because I don't like to restrict myself based on the team. Okay, but however, okay, the trade-off is I have to think for a team, okay, for the gameplay. It is quite a headache. So one shining example for my number 3 game, right, it is basically a game that the gameplay and the team, it actually makes sense. Yeah, so it is a game by Winner Kinesia. Okay, it is a horse racing game called Winner's Circle or Royal Turf. Royal Turf is the older version, is the older name. Winner's Circle is a newer version. There are many publishers. So there is one version sold in Japan. There is an English version. So there are multiple publishers, which I can't remember. Yeah, but why I enjoy this game so much? Okay, and why does it fit the theme? Okay, so for the gameplay wise, right, it is about horse racing. Okay, it is a betting and bluffing game. Okay, it is also a roll. You roll a dice. Okay, that actually decides which horse to move based on the icon. So for the dice, right, it's not a 1 dot 2 dot dice. It is basically dice with different icons. So before each race, okay, you are to bet 3 horses, okay, based on their capabilities. All right, each horse has 4 icons. Each icons have number that decides how many steps the horse moves. So for example, okay, maybe some horses have more steps than the rest. Some horses have maybe very little steps. Okay, so each player roll a die. It reveals an icon. Then from the icon, right, you get to pick which horse to move based on the number that fits the icon. So you could move the horse you bet if it's a big number, or you can sabotage your opponent's horses by making it move with the least number. Yeah. So why does it fit the team? Okay. So like any other horse racing, if you know about horse racing, right, you bet on horses based on the capabilities of horses. Some people, look at the physique of the horses. Some people look at the jockeys, how capable the jockey is, how famous the jockey is, etc. So same thing. Before you bet on the horses, right, you analyze, okay, based on capabilities, on the numbers itself. Yeah, and also the horse starting position. And from there, right, okay, there is some analysis to think about when it comes to betting. Yeah, so it actually reflects on how a person bets on horses. Yeah, and the game itself is also equally as exciting as you betting on horses. When your horse is near winning, close to winning, you feel the excitement. Okay, you can feel the same excitement when you're playing a game. Yeah. So basically this game, right, is one very good example of the gameplay and the team that actually fits together. And it kind of inspires me, okay, to actually brainstorm further on how am I going to make use of the team to make my gameplay stand out and look more interesting as well. Yeah. So of course, I refuse to come up with, an excuse like I can't think of a team, so I'll make an abstract game. Yeah. So for me as a designer, I am willing. I mean, this game actually inspires me to take more effort to think of the team. Yeah, to put more effort in creating a team that actually makes sense and relates to the gameplay. Yeah. So my number 3, winner circle or royal turf.
Okay, before we move on to Isaac, just a disclaimer: amateur board gamer doesn't encourage gambling. This to be family friendly. We don't encourage gambling. So we are of course talking this in good faith that we are playing the betting in the game element. That's all. We don't encourage you to go out and bet on actual horses. But if you are betting on winner circle or turf horse racing, why not? Go ahead. Yeah. So
and just a disclaimer, I'm not a gambler as well. Yeah. But however, I do read up on how people bet on horses. Yep.
it's a strategy for some. So not from that angle, of course, understanding certain things is good. Like people also study on blackjack, but doesn't mean that they like the actual playing of the game. They just like thinking and the analysis of the game itself. So anyway, coming back, Isaac, next is you. Your number 3.
All right. My number 3 pick is also probably my most favorite Asian designer design game, designed by Toby Ho, a game called Deception Murder in Hong Kong. So there was a period of time in Kickstarter where almost every week there was a new social deduction game. All right. Everyone is trying to come up with the next werewolf, the next resistance. But I find with every one of these games, including werewolf and resistance, they always had this similar problem where a few of the players, especially the more soft-spoken ones, would find themselves kind of muted out by the more louder players, the more outspoken players. Okay, these players would then dominate the conversation. They'll be the ones making all the accusations, and then other players just kind of, I'm just going along with it. I'll just vote how you vote, And it's not fun for these people, right? But I find with Deception, it creates this atmosphere where, because everyone has their own information and everyone, everything is a possibility, all right? Because the gameplay is basically where a guy, the forensic investigator, sort of gives clues, and the clues are always vague. So there's no clear evidence, all right? So everyone can say anything they want. So that gives every player an equal ground to make accusations. And it's enhanced even further when you add in the additional roles, all right? The witness, the accomplice. Truly, to me, it's like one of the best social deduction games, also one of the best party games out there. And definitely something that's a standard for anybody trying to design both party games and social deduction games. Right? That's a Deception Murder in Hong Kong.
Jonas?
Okay. Okay, so talking about social deduction, right? I still, incidentally, I have werewolf as one of my top 5. Yeah. So actually, I felt that you can play almost any social deduction game and get the same experience. So I'm just using werewolf as my choice. Since it is, I feel like it is the godfather of all social deduction games. Yeah. So for game designers, especially, I think it is a necessity to actually play werewolf at least one time in your life, even if you do not enjoy the game or you don't really enjoy the player interaction. But the entire experience is moved forward through communication. And this is something that is essential in any board game, right? Including games like The Mind. There is no communication, but you communicate through, eye contact or something like that. Yeah. So board games are games that you play face to face, and this absence or presence of communication is where the fun is. So you really have to play at least one social deduction game to feel how players will experience a game, so that it is possible for you to create an experience like that. Yeah. So that's why I chose Werewolf. But I also have a runner-up, since you mentioned Deception Murder in Hong Kong. Let me see whether I can find it. Detective City of Angels. I felt like it's a quite a similar game, but it's pure deduction, and you do it. You play as individuals instead of I think that it is purely individual. I'm not so familiar with the game, but I played it once, and it really struck me as a very, very good game. So I felt that I needed to at least mention it here, since you mentioned Deception. Yeah.
I've not tried Detective myself, but I've read about it, and I read about that one mechanic where the player playing the bad guy, I can't remember what it's called, he's able to choose like the response that the NPC gives, like when the players ask a question. I think that's like super neat. It's damn clever. It's really
it's one of the most interesting games I've seen that uses narrative as its pushing factor. Yeah. Please play it when you have a chance. It's very good.
All right. So it seems like the number 3 team is social deduction, kind of. We ended with 2 social deduction games. So Colin, we are back with you.
Okay. Sadly, I'm not really much of a social deduction guy, although I got to admit, I totally agree, with the saying that yes, everyone has to play werewolf at least once in their life. Because I do remember games like that, they actually can take a life of its own. So back in the days when I was at Settlers Cafe and we had the staff party, I brought one bag worth of games. Everyone took a pack of playing cards, and we ended up playing the whole night, that simple pack of playing cards, werewolf. So that tells you, that's classic. That's what you want from your audience. Look at it. That's what you want, all right? So my number 2 is a game that has the same game designer as well. So unfortunately, it's not Kinesia because I didn't mention it yet. Philip Walker Harding has done a game called Gizmos. And I was one of the very, very privileged players who actually saw the original prototype that was being submitted to Simon for them to produce. And after playing it once, we just went asking, can we keep playing it? And yes, all right, exactly, Gizmos. So, and for those who do not know, and I'll shamelessly plug it for Sebastian, it's basically, please look, there's an unboxing video at the link there, all right, and you click on it and you get the unboxing, all right. So what's so great about Gizmos? Well, one of the things that we talk about in for games design is how you get game designers hooked into the game that they want to play. After all, a game is just a set of rules that everyone follows, or sometimes you try to fool around with the rules and escape a bit, but it's all about building something. And Gizmos is the ultimate engine building. They don't shy away. You're actually building Gizmos, different kind of mechanics within it. So in the original game prototype, all they did was using cards. And it was only that's when we talk about when you give it to a large company and they get good production value, you start to see how visions can improve. Today it's not cards. What is it? They're using colored marbles. And because it's already an unboxing video, I'm not going to go through about the gameplay too much. The reason why I put it as my number 2 is it's highly addictive and it's very simple. And it follows the modern principle that if you're looking for an Euro game, today mostly people are looking at just taking one action. You're not going to do several things, and so of course everyone wants to play fast. You do not want this player downtime thing. And it covers things like card drafting, the card powers that you use that stack with one another. It's so elegant, I mean, I could spend the rest of this time singing praises, but for my number 2, all right, if you're a games designer and you want to see how cards, powers work elegantly together, try out Gizmos.
Okay, I don't have to self-plug anymore since Colin already did it for me. Yeah. So anyway, just coming back on the comment on a werewolf, I'm sure viewers out there, if you're from Singapore, through your, I don't know, primary school, secondary school days, you must have played Murderer or Polar Bear before, if in orientation camps or just sitting around with friends. So that if you have played that, you kind of have played some version of werewolf. because it's just a different adaptation of that game itself. So if you are seeing this video for the first time and you manage to reach till here, so and you are thinking, have I played any of this game? Maybe you have, but you haven't thought of it in that way. Yeah. So let's move on to Geoffrey.
All right. Okay, have you played games before where you ended up having wasted moves or wasted turns? Okay, it's a very frustrating thing. As a designer, right, okay, when you design games that actually created a number of opportunities for wasted turns or wasted move, okay, it kind of give you some, how I'm going to say, a tick, to think through, how am I going to improve this gameplay? All right, so my next game, right, is actually one of the games whereby there are so many ways to earn a fortune in this economic game, whereby, there are many possible moves whereby it is quite difficult to have a wasted move, okay, unless you are really bad at this game, okay. This game is called Le Havre. Okay, the designer is by Uwe Rosenberg. Okay, the publisher is Lookout Games. Okay, so among so many of such games, right? Okay, why do I recommend Le Havre? Okay, first, I really enjoy economic games. Okay, and for Le Havre, right? Okay, it for each turn, okay, you actually have a lot of methods to earn money or earn a fortune. Okay, you can let's say you can invest in buildings, okay, and when people need some services from your buildings, okay, you can earn money from it. Okay, you can buy goods, sell goods, okay, or you can also use shipping, the shipment, okay, to earn money as well. You can also multiply so-called what I'll call it trending resources. Okay, so basically, the gameplay itself is a lot more complex to talk about it. Okay, but to summarize it, right, it's basically, the mechanism including automatic resource growth. There are endgame bonuses. There's loans. There's ownership. It's a worker placement game. Okay, yeah. So so for this game, unfortunately, I couldn't have a copy because it is. I'm not very sure is it out of print or not. Okay, but I really love to have this copy. Okay, I played this a few times, and every single time I played this game, I enjoy it so much, and it gives me such a very big impression. That there is some game, okay, whereby I can finally enjoy a game without wasted turns, without wasted rounds, without wasted actions. There are so many possibilities, and it also allows me to strategically plan, my next moves. Yeah. So Le Havre, okay, not very sure if I pronounce it correctly, all right, but it's my number 4.
Cool. So let's move on to Isaac. What's your number 4 or your number 2, depending on how you're looking at it?
Right, my number 2 is basically, so one of the most common games I see like new designers come up with is essentially a 1v1 wizard dueling game, right? Basically Magic. So the game I wanted to put here was Android Netrunner, but I realized no one can play the game because it's out of print. So which leads me to then go back to basically the original game that Richard Garfield designed, who also designed Netrunner, which is basically Magic the Gathering. Right? If you're designing a 1v1 wizard dueling game and you have not played Magic the Gathering, then I'm sorry, you have to play Magic the Gathering because it sets so many things that are standard nowadays, right? Things like keyword abilities, things like spell stack, where you stack your spells and then they resolve from top to bottom. All these standard things that are basically considered. And it has inspired so many games down the road. Like Colin mentioned earlier, like Seven Wonders essentially took the drafting element from Magic. And it's such a influential game that, if you're trying to design something that essentially an entire genre that's created from this one game alone, you have to play the original, which is Magic the Gathering, right? If you have not played it, then I'm not saying it's a good game. I personally don't really enjoy it, but I think there's a lot to learn from both what it does really well and both what it doesn't do really well, right? Because sometimes you can learn more from what the game does badly than what it does well. So yeah, that's my number two, Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering. a lot of memories for me. A lot of also.
Yeah, sitting outside the World of JJ at Dishan. That's where I spent a lot of time.
So we may have met inevitably before it closed down. Years
Possibly.
I think around.
AK brings me some memories.
So Jonas, is it your number 4 or your number 2? How are you ranking it?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't really have a specific order.
Your
Yeah.
fourth game series?
Sorry, what do you say?
Your fourth game in this series.
Yeah, my fourth game. Actually, it's not really a game. It's more of like a theme. Breaking the rules a little here, because I'm gonna mention a digital-only card game. It's a Hearthstone, or Slay the Spire. Essentially, any digital-only card games. I feel like board game designers, analog game designers, should be playing digital games also, because it lets you know, understand the limits of analog games as compared to digital formats. If you have played Hearthstone before, you should have already understood what I meant, because there are some cards that allow you to do really impossible to do stuff if you are playing analog, like creating a copy of a random card, which can be any single card in the entire I don't know,
universe.
Yeah, entire universe. Yeah, so that is really just impossible to do when you're playing analog. But this is possible in digital, and it creates quite a lot of difference. Creates different strategies that players can go for, and it's something that you should consider whether you want to have, so that you will know whether you should be creating your game for a digital format right from the very start. Yeah. So that is my number 4. Not number 4, my 4th pick, which is a team. Just play any digital-only card game, so that you know that these things are possible or these things are not possible. You understand the upper limit of what is of the randomization and calculations you can have inside an analog game as compared to a digital board game. Yeah.
Well, technically, the theme today is top 5 games aspiring designers should play. So I don't think you're bending the rules there, because games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right on point. If so obviously most of you who are watching this probably are interested in board games, but at the same time, because of circuit breaker, I believe a lot of us, or because of quarantine, a lot of us have actually resorted to digital versions of certain games, and at the same time, you may have explored to some other games just because you can't have people sitting around the table just in this point in time.
Before that, let me just add one more thing. All right, Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering are awesome. You know, I'm glad it was brought up because it was common. I suspected one of you guys did it, so you guys didn't let me down. So the whole important thing behind it is, if you realize that these games comes in waves, comes in set, and it helps us games designers immediately to, in game terms, play randomizing probabilities. You are seeing how things link together, and by playing more, you exercise your mind a bit more. You get inspiration, you know, and then you see how if power A mixed with power B, is it overpowered, that kind of thing. And these are things which Hearthstone, these are things which Magic the Gathering bring about. Any CCGs or anything which you need to collect and do sets, normally they will help you on this area.
Also, totally agree with the point about having aspiring board game designers should definitely play digital games, because I think find a lot of board game designers, they make the mistake of trying to replicate a computer within their game. Right?
Yeah.
You're missing the point of analog games. I find analog games are all about social interaction. You're playing other people. You're not playing the game. The game, if not, the game plays you, right? So yeah, you playing computer games will show you that, okay, you know what, this kind of games better on computer. What you should do on a tabletop, play with people.
I mean, my personal thoughts on games like Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone is that comparing to games as we traditionally know them, like what Colin mentioned, over time, certain power may mix with other power and make it overpower. And that's where sometimes it goes a bit out of hand for some of the original game designers. Maybe that's where the intention wasn't there. But the game spirals out out of control and becomes a pay-to-win game format, which some gamers are not so keen on. Yeah, which is why after going into video gaming and all, I stumbled back and started playing analog game that doesn't have that element. Everybody starts on a level playing field. Yeah, so that's just something different if you are thinking about it. Whether you want people that are playing your games to be playing from a neutral starting point, or they actually can have some advantage just because they have certain financial means, or they have certain other elements or certain luck factor where they are opening booster packs and they're getting better cards in that respect. So I mean, of course, it's you choose what games you like to play, but well, these four guys are sharing what aspiring game designers need to know and need to be exposed to, so that they can actually have a good feel of how they want to construct and construe their games.
Yeah, and something I would like to own up is I played Magic the Gathering without boosters. I totally hate boosters. Yeah, so it's something to own up. I actually played Magic Gathering like with starter decks. So basically, I play with my friends, right? Okay, I basically let them know that okay, I am not into boosters. Okay, so this is how I'm going to play. Okay, I have a bunch of starter packs. You pick a starter pack, you play with it. Yeah, I'm not a person, right? Okay, who enjoys buying expansions. Okay, for the sake of completing a game. Okay, if you want me to buy a game, give me a completed game. Okay, it's okay to come at expansions right after a number of feedback, or you thought of some new improvements along the way. Okay, but if you're trying to sell a game and an expansion at the same time, and telling me that if you want a full experience, buy my base game and expansion together. Okay, then I'll say, okay, I'm not going to give you my money. Okay, yeah. So in a way, I don't agree to this business model. I'm not against expansions, but I am against the base game and the expansion at the same time. Okay, in order to have a full experience of the game. Okay, it's okay to have expansions. Okay, after feedback or after new ideas. Yeah, I encourage that. Okay, but not what I said previously. Yeah.
But Geoffrey, on that point, just checking, would you rather have the chance to enter a game like a $40, $50 game, and the expansion is $20, $30, and you can choose not to buy, or would you rather go full Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, pay $200 for the game?
I would rather go full. Yeah, the answer is I would rather go full, right? If it's intended to be played like that. Yeah. So okay. I say like, okay, if it's at the same time, probably the game designer or the publisher think that okay, this is the intended full game. I will always play the full game. Or I'll always go for the full game. Yeah. Okay. Right. So
I was asking that question so that we can understand your psyche a bit more, how you are thinking. So yeah, this shows that you just rather get the complete version of whatever it can be.
Yeah. That's right. It's from what I figured out from Jeff, because I had the same experience. I shall not mention which company either, but the simple fact I gave away the game after buying the expansion was designers, please don't try to say I'm going to make extra money by selling half a game. You're supposed to be selling the full game. And if you're people who have started, and then you tell them immediately, like, it could be just 2 months, they say, oh, expansion's out, and you find actually that should have been part of the basic. It's a big turn-off. I think that's what Jeff is talking about, right?
Yeah.
Actually, an interesting note I'd like to add is like the format you mentioned, actually like playing just starter decks is actually known in Magic as sealed. It's a sealed format where players just play sealed decks. And the interesting thing is that sealed was actually the direct inspiration for Richard Garfield to then later create Keyforge, which is like a newer CCG that came out like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually quite interesting how like the like how influential games are. Like they create like a format then creates a new game. So it's it's very interesting.
Okay, I think we have enough anticipation for the number ones because we have been for 5 or 10 more minutes. So why don't we go back to Colleen and number one pick, Colleen.
Okay, the number one pick that I actually have has been a game that even during this COVID session, I've been playing like almost every 2 nights. Terraforming Mars by Jacob I'm going to pronounce this Frixelius. So, reason why I kind of like saying this is a must-go game for aspiring game designers is that if you are looking into the Eurogame market and you are not looking into just I'm going to put a game because I want to put my name there, and it could be an abstract, it could be a very simple social deduction children's game, but you are serious about reaching out your audience. Like I'm sure all four of us, when we design a game, it's not about the money. There is no money, for if you guys want to know that, it's really no money. It's because we want to see people appreciate and enjoy what we have created out for you to play. So Terraforming Mars is like an operatic game. It starts in a struggle, and as you start to build up towards the end, everyone's racing together, and even if you didn't win the game, you enjoy that journey together. Again, it's like an engine builder. It's a lot, all right? And I'm just going to name out 3 things. It's basically a card drafting, variable player power, hand management game, which takes you from a asynchronous start, which means players have different starting levels that they try to balance, but it gives players the chance to try out different strategies to win. So, and that to me is what Euro games are about. You don't have a simple single path to win. You actually have different ways to try. And here's a very interesting thing for those of you who never thought of picking it up. It is a co-op in a sense. It's a competitive cooperative game because the game will not end unless all players decide to terraform Mars together through its 3 major criteria: sufficient oxygen, sufficient water, and to have the temperature at least comfortable to a penguin. Okay, minus 14 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. 14 degrees, sorry, 14, not minus 14. So while it looks daunting at the start, why do I say that? It is one of those games I recommend designers to try, because one of the key things in the game is if you were to go and play online for it, you can only have the base set. So for someone who has gotten every single expansion and has a group that regularly plays a week, all the expansion, to come back and play the base game and to enjoy it, the keyword is enjoying the game together, it proves the power of a game. So it boils down again to what Geoffrey brought up. It's if you just want to buy the base game, Jeff, you played it. So it is just there. It's you probably play it right from the get-go, and even if you don't get a single expansion, you're still getting the experience of the game. So the game that I'll say that you should go, my number 1, Terraforming Mars by Jacob Frizzelius.
I was going to comment a lot more on the fact that this game has 5 expansions, but since you already rounded it up back, there's no purpose for that anymore, given our lengthy bashing on expansion for a short while earlier. So Geoffrey, why don't you take us to your number 1 game?
Yes, my number 1. Okay, generally when an aspiring designer sees a dice, what will you do with the dice? 1 is roll and move. 2 is, okay, you roll a dice, that is how many resources you get, that's how many actions you get, etc., etc. Okay, so basically, when you look at the dice, right, okay, you generally think that is how you use a die. Okay, but for this game, the reason why I picked this game is one of my favorite games of all time, and it is a game that cleverly uses dice. Okay, and this game is called Santa Maria. Okay, so why do I call it a clever use of dice? Okay, so generally, right, okay, every players, you have to roll a number of dice. I can't remember as of now, okay. You roll a number of blue dice, okay, and then the dice results, right, will become, okay, the resource dice to pick. Okay, and how do you earn resource? Okay, there is a player board you have, and this player board comes with a 6x6 grid, whereby, okay, you will get resource, okay, based on the entire row of the dice. So for example, blue dice 2, okay, so you'll be taking the entire resource based on the tiles placed at the second row. Okay, if you get white dice 3, okay, you get the column of number 3. Okay, so you earn resource based on the tiles placed over there. Okay, of course, this game is quite complex to explain the whole rules. Okay, so it includes card drafting, dice rolling, there's a network and group building, set collection, tile placements. Okay, there's also variable player powers. Okay, it is basically like a Euro game. Okay, where it's basically you manage resources to earn, as many points as possible. Yeah. So for this, the reason why I picked this as number one, because this is one of my all-time favorite games. Okay, and I really like the interesting use of dice. Okay, it basically kind of like whenever I introduce game to other aspiring designers, they were like, wow, I didn't know that you can use dice this way. Yeah. So because everybody, when they see a certain item, okay, they can only think it this way, is because we are only exposed to games that work like that. Yeah, but probably this is one of the games that I would like to recommend to aspiring designers. Okay, to let you know that a dice can be used for many other mechanisms. Okay, it's really up to how creative you can use it. Yeah, so that's my number one, Santa Maria.
Yeah, I would like to mention also there are games like roll and write games. So you use the dice differently also. There's a game called Teotihuacan, which is also something that is practically a worker, right? In a rondel. So it's super interesting. Other games that we can play just to widen your viewpoint of how you can use dice.
All right. So after all the dicey comments, let's move on to Isaac.
All right. My number one is a game that's been mentioned several times in this entire chat. A game designed by Anton Bauza, one of my favorite designers. A game called Seven Wonders. All right. So, to me, Seven Wonders is the game that really opened up my eyes to one key skill, which I find is essential to every game designer: math. So it sounds really simple, but actually math is key, right? Math is really important. Like the one problem I have with most prototypes that I see and I try is that I find most designers have no sense of how they value the resources within their game. Everything just feels gut check. This card gives you 3. This card, when you play, you draw 3 cards. This card, draw 2 cards. They both cost the same thing. Why? They have no idea. They just decided to put it in. So to me, Seven Wonders, it actually started from a strategy article I read in Boardgame Geek. Right? It's the top strategy article there. If you read it, they see some guy actually went to break down every single card within the game. I don't know how much time he spent on that for all player counts.
I'll put the link here because I read it.
Yeah. It's a bit dry for some people, but to me, it really opened my eyes on how you should basically look at the numbers within your game and how you should basically value the cards, right? Because basically, Seven Wonders is a point scoring game. Every card can be broken down into how many points does this card get me right now or get me in the future. And to me, that's the key for designing almost every game out there. Because if you don't know what the value of resources are, you won't know how to basically make all the cards or all the tokens or all the basically powers in your game. Right? This is basically the basis on which most games are designed. Euro games and some American games. Party games maybe not so much, but definitely Seven Wonders is one of my favorite games and also one of the games that really opened up my eyes to the world of math within board games.
I'd like to mention Century Spice, also another game that really breaks down value for you immediatly, actually. Yeah, so it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the points you can get.
Yep. That's also one of also a really good game, man. I prefer the first one the most actually out of all 3 because I find that's like the core of the experience. The others I find they tend to add like a lot of additional mechanics that's not as nice.
Okay.
Jonas,
so for me, my last one is legit my number one. It is the game that brought me back to designing board games again. Is Zokin. So for me, Zokin really shows you the limits of what a board game can be, in my opinion, purely because of the gear. It is so insane to see a gear on a board game. You cannot play the game without the board. That's how important the gear is to the game. It is not only thematic, it is central to the entire game experience. And it is something that board game designers should aspire to have within their game. You can call it a gimmick, but it's not really a gimmick. It's something that's very important to have in a game, to make it as unique as what Zokin is. Yeah. It gives you, not only does it give you a tactile feel to the game, it also gives you a sense of time that progresses within the gameplay. And because of this sense of time, there's urgency to progress. You need to get your food. You don't get food, you cannot feed your guys. You don't feed your guys, you're gonna lose, right? So essentially, this entire sense of time, because it is called a Zokin main calendar, this calendar plus sense of time is essentially telling you that, okay, this is the theme of the game, and we want to make it very clear to you. Yeah. So this is Zokin is my number one game for aspiring board game designers.
Agree.
It's a really good game.
Yeah.
And one thing I find is that it's so central to the game, and so it's so tied to both the theme and the gameplay that no other game has tried to copy it, because like no other game can find a good way to do what it did better.
Yeah. Correct.
So I think that's a sign that they really found like the perfect way to use it.
I was super blown away when I first played it. It was so crazy that I immediately felt like I should be designing games again.
Okay,
And
that's
also,
good.
I also agree with the point that you said, like a unique selling point, because like that's definitely something that a lot of games miss out on. Like just having that one part of the game that just people look at it and just like, wow, what's this? I need to try it. They just want to touch it, right? That's kind of the key.
All right. So, to be honest, a lot of the games they all mentioned, I haven't played. That's why I'm not aspiring for game designer. But with that said, a lot of the games actually, those that are up my alley, I'll probably try them. I know some of them are very similar to games I already played. Jonas' number one game can be played on Boardgame Arena.
Yep.
We are not sponsored, but if Boardgame Arena is watching this, you can sponsor us. We don't mind. Yeah, you can play it for free there. That was my encounter to Zokin, even though I think it's in a lot of people's collection. It's not in mine, and I was appalled to find out the price when I was trying to search how much to buy it on Amazon. It's a 3-digit figure, so I haven't got it yet. But I mean, for Zokin, I want to talk specifically on Zokin because given the good response everyone have, it kind of reached a stage where I was actually monitoring how the top Boardgame Arena player on Zokin was playing. And he seemed to found a always win strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, actually it's well known in Zokin that there's one strategy that's so powerful that the only way to stop it is to play the strategy yourself. But then if you do that, you will lose.
That's the problem personally I have with games where there's one dominant strategy in a game. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not speaking as a aspiring or a have-been designer, but from a player perspective. When I find a game where there is a dominant strategy, right? After I played it a couple more times and I tested that dominant strategy always works. Yeah, that game gets upgraded from my shelf to my storeroom.
Yeah,
that is where the expansions come in.
Yeah, I mean, expansions come in. So I think that's probably one point where we talk about expansions, because if your expansion is there to kind of solve a previously known problem like a feedback, yeah, I think expansions definitely will be welcome.
Yeah, so for me, such expansion is also welcome by me as well. Yeah, like it's you're doing it based on feedback. Yeah, making a game better. After some thought. Yeah.
Yeah, because
just a follow up. If you are new to Zokin, you should play base Zokin first. Play a couple of times, then play with the expansion. Then you'll know the difference. There is a difference.
Yeah, understand. I only play it once. Yeah, that is in Boardgame Arena as well. Yeah, so I enjoy it. Yeah, probably I need to play a few more times in order to understand what exactly is the domineering strategy.
Shamelessly plug at this point, we do actually have a copy of it at Basecamp.
That's great. That's great.
With the expansion.
I'm going to link
all the expansions that has been thrown at me.
Basecamp?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to link it in the description box below. You can check them out. Go there, meet Colin and play games from his side. Enjoy yourself when COVID is over. For now, hold your horses. Basecamp is not open like most establishments in Singapore. So hold your horses. But when it's open, go there. I think in the meanwhile, find an online version if you do. just want to find out what we are all talking about in terms of Zokin. And I'm gonna be putting my money that we may have a possibility that we will be playing Zokin on Boardgame Arena later after this whole call ends, because we're talking about it and everybody is still awake. There's a chance we'll be trying out or we'll be showing Geoffrey what the dominant strategy is, and for the rest of these people to show me that everybody plays the strategy is still a game worth playing. Yeah. So anyway, guys, any final words or any final advice for aspiring board game designers? Maybe we starting from Colin.
Okay, for me, very simple. It's not just, oh, wait a minute, we now got 20 games to try. It's now called, you go out, you go play as many different games as you want. And whatever game, mechanic, or stuff that you're looking at, you can then zoom in on what. You can ask around your regular playing groups, go visit the different playing area, I would say groups, what was it? Meetups, that's right. All the different playing meetups, and then you see what people play, or you talk to them. Because in this way, you might actually find, like I stumbled on, like I shared, Crusaders That Will Be Done, was stumbled upon, and then they started the juices going for a game.
Oh, I actually have a number 6. Can I just say it?
So we have a bonus category from Jonas. Number 6.
Number 6 is Captain Sona. You all will understand why, right? It is. I feel like it's the only real-time game that actually is super impressive.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, go and watch a video of people playing Captain Sona. It's super chaotic and very, very fun.
All right.
Geoffrey, anything from you?
Okay. I'm not a designer that actually have a successful Kickstarter or have a game from a publisher. I actually have a self-published game in which I'm only selling on Carousel. Okay, but however, if I were to give some advice, also a way to remind myself, right, is one. I have 2 advice. One is play a wide variant of games. Okay, don't stick to just social deduction. Don't stick to just economic games. Don't stick to just RPG games, etc., etc. Okay, because I believe this thing called you are a game designer according to what you play. So basically, it means that, for example, if your entire life as a designer, right, all you play is Monopoly, right, the games you only design are only something similar to Monopoly. All right, so be exposed to a wide variant of games. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Okay, just have some exposure. Yeah, trust me, it's eye opener. Second is learn to accept criticisms. Yeah, my first few prototypes is always a disaster. Okay, my games will always suck. Okay, there will be tons of criticisms when you play test your prototypes. Okay, even after you publish a game, there will always be people who doesn't like the game. So for example, some of the games, the other game designers have mentioned, okay, to be honest, some of the games I totally hate them. Okay, but that is basically part and parcel of a game design lah. Yeah, so you can't please everybody. Okay, but at least be sure who are you targeting. Yeah, so so at least learn how to receive criticisms. Yeah, so that's my 2 advice.
I totally agree on that part about criticism. It's something I also want to talk about, because I find most designers sometimes they get too attached to their designs. Understandable, your first design is kind of like your baby, you want to protect your child. But sometimes, you reach the point where you are resistant to all feedback, right? You just defend it because you think it works. It's my child, it's perfect, I don't want to touch it. So be open to criticism, and don't. In fact, I would say when someone gives you a feedback, just don't talk. Don't even try to, like, if you say something and you feel like actually that's not what I intended, just leave it alone, right? Because sometimes the key or the feedback that the person is giving you is not essentially what he's actually really talking about. Like if someone tells you like this card doesn't work, that card doesn't work, the real feedback there is not that the card doesn't work, is that he feels frustration over that specific mechanic or the specific thing that's happening. All right. So that's another thing I'll talk about. When you receive feedback, you have to drill down into what's the core of the feedback. Don't just take it at surface value. go into the deeper part of it, like what's the frustration these people are feeling, right? And key part of this skill is observation. You have to be able to. That's why I always play test with with myself around. I always want to see what the players are feeling and thinking. Right? Sometimes the best feedback I get is just watching a player look at his hand, or look at his board, or look at his whatever, and just have expression on his face. Right? Something is like, shit, I don't know what to do, or wait, what am I supposed to do? All right. And once you see these kind of things, you know those are pain points within your game and something you have to fix. So yeah, so criticism, feedback, all of this pretty important skills. One thing also I'd like to point out is like, never ask the question, what do you think about the game? Because almost everyone will never give you a good response to that, right? It's actually a useless question. Never ask that question. It's just rubbish.
You need to be very clear of on what is the objective of your playtest.
Yep.
You need to know which are the exact things you need to test, and then test it, and then ask specific questions on that specific mechanic or process, so that they can give you very accurate, your playtesters can give you very accurate feedback, which will be useful, instead of you ask general questions like what Isaac said, which is essentially wasting everybody's time. Yeah.
Which is also why when you're getting your playtesting groups, focus them onto what you want them to do. So as an example, when you do an early prototype, and this should be within your own private playtesting group, not public playtesting groups, you want to know, like, am I testing just this one part of the mechanism? And because what a common encounter I have in my game designs has been, everyone likes to go, hey, but you should have a much nicer design graphic. You should put this here. It's when it's not even reached a stage where you're looking at the user interfaces itself. So you need to focus your playtesting groups into exactly what you want them to feedback to you. And I think you should be able then to get the right feedback.
So one last point. I know it's dragging, but something I felt I need to add is also, after you play test, the key I also find is don't act on all the feedback you receive. All right, act on one or two of them, test it again, and then if it works, then you act on the rest. If you change too many things in one go, sometimes you won't know what actually went wrong or went right. Sometimes in fact, it's worse if everything goes right. Then you don't know what actually went right. Right. So it's basically kind of like science, like you have to form like a control and don't change too many things in one go.
Also, play a few times before you change your version. Right? Play a few times of a specific version before you make any changes. If not, you will know what is the constant problem.
Yeah.
It might just be a one-off thing, then you change things and then more problems appear.
Okay, so this Zoom meeting is made possible thanks to Capital Gain Studios hosting. So you can find the link below. If you have played the games mentioned by our guests, please do comment below and let us know if you agree or you disagree with our guests over here. And if there are any other games that you will recommend to aspiring game designers, do leave in the comments so that more of us can benefit from it. If you enjoy videos like this, please do like and share it. Subscribe to Amateur Board Gamer and for more of this, and watch more of our videos on the site. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.
All right, thank you. Bye.